Hi folks, Paul O'Brien here from isometrictraining.com with my second video blog. In this one I've been asked to cover some of the questions I did on a recent teleseminar where I answered about 10-15 questions or so on isometrics and fitness in general. And a recording of that call was made, but unfortunately the first 45 minutes were missing. So I've been asked to cover the questions I was asking that. So this video is going to focus on the first one of that, and then at the end I may give away a few more details on the elusive and, dare I say it, super awesome Project Dragon. This is my evil. I've always wanted to do this. This is my scheming fingers thing. I always wanted an excuse to do the triangle, the pyramid of evil. The pyramid of evil scheming. Yes. Yes. Right. Now, back onto the questions I was being asked. Let me just quickly check what it was. Bruce asked, I'm all for shorter, more effective workouts, but seriously, how effective can an isometric workout be if it only lasts 10 minutes? How does one gauge how hard one is working since there are no weights or measurement of strength? It seems so easy to cheat, or too difficult to work all the muscles in a given exercise since there are no weights. Good question. So let's look at each aspect of that. The first part being asked in that question is obviously how effective can an isometric workout be if it only lasts 10 minutes? Well, as I mentioned on the call, in point of fact, it doesn't last 10 minutes, it lasts even less. A proper isometric workout can actually be conducted within 7 to 35 seconds or so. And that's a full body workout, I might add. It's been shown in a number of studies, the latest of which was conducted informally by John Little out in the North Center, and he showed that it takes less than a quarter of a second to stimulate muscle tissue to grow. Now, being able to contract your muscles that hard in a quarter of a second is a learnt skill. And part of the Perfect Body program is to actually teach you that skill, to teach you the ability to contract a muscle with proper force. As regards how effective my isometric programs are, obviously I'm going to tell you that they're brilliant. But aside from my own incredibly biased opinion on that, coming from having stared at myself far too long in the mirror, the scientific literature completely supports that conclusion as well, and that's a very, very important aspect of what I teach. It is supported by the scientific literature. You can go back to the 1950s and the report on isometrics conducted by Hetzinger and Mueller, which showed that a 7 to 12 second contraction produced 5 to 15% in terms of strength increases and muscle growth on a weekly basis. And that was really the big study that got it all started. On the website, I mention a recent report that was done by NASA. Well, I say recent because everyone's been going on about it recently, but the report was actually conducted 4 years ago, and that showed NASA concluded that a isometric contraction actually increased strength by 14%, and it beat all the other forms of contraction that they tested. Eccentric, which is where you lower a weight, like so, and concentric, where you pull the weight in. And they tested all of these forms of training, and isometrics produced the most muscular growth and the most increase in strength, and it was by about 14%. So everything for the last 50 years of scientific study supports that brief contractions produce the best muscle growth. Now, why is this, and why does the workout become so effective? And the reason is, and this is something I go into huge epic detail on in Project Dragon, first plug. Dun, 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 dun. The first big reason for this is because of the nature of your muscle tissue itself. Muscle tissue isn't comprised of just muscle tissue. It's comprised of a number of different muscular fibers, and there are 4 major types. They've got slow twitch, intermediate type 2, and fast twitch glycolic. That's a big way big word way of saying some muscle fibers contract very slowly, we call these slow fibers, and some contract very, very quickly, and we call these fast fibers, and then some contract even faster than that, and they're the fast oxidative glycolic fibers. Basically meaning they use a lot of oxygen and a lot of sugar, as opposed to the slow fibers, which use an awful lot of fat and don't really do much other than, contract most of your muscles on a daily basis. So they're important and they're crucial to your movement, but they're not what we're looking to achieve. A slow fiber fatigues very, very slowly. So you're training for an hour and you probably won't have exhausted them if you're walking or lifting a pencil or whatever. But generally they won't fatigue. They'll fatigue and be replaced, fatigue and be replaced, fatigue and be replaced, and it's fine. Your body can cope with that. That's why you can walk 10 miles without worrying about it. It's how we get around from A to B. Fast oxidative glycolic fibers, on the other hand, generally contract for about 2 to 3 seconds before they're exhausted, and then other fibers contract for about 5 seconds before they're exhausted. So basically, these very fast twitch fibers, the ones that are responsible for BAM! Very fast movements, or movements under great load, would only have energy to contract for between 7 and 12 seconds, which is why we hold on to a 7 and 12-second contraction. And this stimulates those type of fibers. It stimulates those fast twitch fibers, which again feed on sugar. Now, these fibers are generally, by and large, thicker in diameter and capable of being filled more by sugar and water than the slow fibers, which means these are the fibers you want to make bigger and stronger. These fast oxidative glycolic fibers are the ones you want to make stronger and to train, because they are the bigger ones, and the bigger you make them, the bigger your muscles look and the stronger you are. And isometrics is the single best method for achieving that effect, as proven by the Germans back in the 1950s and as proven by NASA in the noughties. God, how I miss the noughties. So the reason the workout is effective is because it's stimulating those key fibers, and it builds strength and it builds muscle tissue as a result of that. Thickens those muscular fibers that we want to achieve, and that's essentially the science behind why it works. And every